This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, a tablet, an Xbox, games, or a whole lot more, you can get them at the Microsoft Store. And remember, for current students, faculty, parents, and active military, you can save up to 10% off almost everything. To browse the products and learn more about the discounts, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. We've had quite a couple of years talking about security and privacy issues. It seems to be a constant situation. And this week, a report from a security researcher has indicated that there are additional concerns within the TikTok app. So the problem comes specifically from the in-app browser that exists within TikTok. Now, you might be thinking in your head, there's an in-app browser in TikTok. Why? It's just like all the social networks. They've got a browser built in, various levels of okay. Facebook is a little more full-featured than, say, Twitter's. But the idea is to keep you within the ecosystem and the experience of the social network without opening your default browser, whether it be, Safari or Chrome or Edge or DuckDuckGo or, whatever. It keeps you within the Twitter or TikTok or Facebook app. But with that comes some potential concerns. Now, I've never been a fan of doing anything of consequence within the browser of somebody else. I always want to know where I am and what I'm doing. Apple feels the same way. Today, apps aren't allowed to use an in-app browser to do logins. They have to be done natively on any newly updated applications. This is a rule I just learned about through a project that I'm working on. But they will allow you to do other things, such as open a link in Twitter or click on an ad in TikTok. So what has happened with TikTok? According to this researcher, what they're doing is they're injecting some JavaScript into the browser on page loads to track your keystrokes. So, why would they do that? Well, I think as anybody who's been around the internet for a long time can tell you, keyloggers have long been a problem on computers because they're able to watch you type in your email address and your password. And now they know what you're up to. They can watch you put in things like credit card numbers, which is, of course, one of the reasons why I always recommend privacy. Because you don't have to worry about that as much. They can watch you type in anything and then correspond it back to you, or just steal it outright and use it for something else. Like a credit card, they can go off and make other purchases with it. Or, social security number. And a zip code is just about enough to steal somebody's identity. So if this is accurate, which the security researcher is known for accuracy, so I'm going to make the assumption that they are likely accurate, this would be a huge concern. Again, I always recommend that you don't do anything of consequence through a browser that is not a browser, right? We know that Chrome, we know that Safari, we know that Edge, we know that DuckDuckGo, we know that these are browsers. This is what they do, and that's not what TikTok does. So you shouldn't be doing anything of consequence there. But if you have, maybe keep an eye out. What do you think, Abram?
I mean, obviously, there's been security concerns with TikTok for a while. If I'm using a browser, I would rather use a browser that is made by a company who I trust a little more than a social network.
Sure.
So, I understand there's certainly always trust issues with every company, whether it's Google or Microsoft or Apple, but I would trust Google, Microsoft, Apple, the Mozilla Foundation, or somebody else who's known for browsers like Opera a lot more than I would trust TikTok with my data.
Sure. And if you're clicking on an ad in a TikTok video, and it opens a website in the browser, and you're looking at shoes, and you're not purchasing. You're just looking at a website that has shoes. Okay, maybe, right? Risk is low there, but it's at that point where all of a sudden now you're making a purchase, right? Because now you're putting credit card information in. There's all kinds of other personal information that's making its way into that interaction. None of that personal, private stuff should be done in a browser that's not a browser. Microsoft, Google, Apple, Opera, Mozilla, they make browsers. That's what they do. They're a browser because they're a browser, not they're a browser because they want to watch what you're doing online. And I know for a lot of people, you may have never considered that it's a web browser running within Facebook or TikTok or Twitter or whatever, but it is. It is not your browser. It is their browser. It is something unrelated to what you usually use. Yes, if you're using it on an iPhone, it is going to be Apple's rendering engine. It's going to be the Safari rendering engine because of certain rules that Apple has about browsers. But that's it. That's the extent of the crossover between those two things. It is not your browser. It is not what you were expecting. Don't do anything of consequence in there. Always, most of them have a menu item where you can open it in your browser. Do that. If you're going to do anything of consequence, do that. And I do that for articles, even. Like, I don't like to do anything within the Facebook or Twitter browser simply because I don't know what's going on. If it's Safari or Chrome or Edge, I generally know what's going on. I generally know publicly traded companies. There's information they have to provide about certain things. But that's my current position on it. Do you think I'm going above and beyond? Am I going too far with it that I like?
No,
I don't
you
even like
can't.
to read articles in it.
No, I mean, I think you can't be. You really can't be too careful when it comes to online. I mean, when it comes to things that are anonymous anyway. Like, honestly, I'm not super concerned about because it's just tracking, stuff for advertising behavior and stuff like that. But you gotta be careful. You obviously hold what the company, what information you're giving out to companies. So it's obviously important. So you gotta be careful.
For sure. So just know, in-app browsers, never the way to go. If you can avoid it, you definitely should. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course hit the notification bell because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.